John, let's talk about Carson Wentz. Before we do that, though, a couple of reminders.
Check out the YouTube channel. Like, subscribe to our videos and our podcast below in the description.
That's right. All right. Do you know who leads the NFL in interceptions?
It's probably Carson Wentz.
That's correct.
Because Jameis Winston's a backup.
That's correct. Jameis has not played enough games, and he's not going to get the opportunity this year. 15 picks. Here's my basic question on Carson after watching Monday Night Football. If Doug Pederson gets fired and you line up all the coaches that are potential NFL head coaches, would they view it as a positive that Carson Wentz is potentially their quarterback if they take the Eagles job?
I would have said a month ago, yes. It would have been like, there's just not enough evidence this guy's a shot fighter. After watching Monday Night Football, and it's really the first Carson Wentz game I've probably watched start to finish in like a month, it's a lot worse than I thought. Just his touch. I mean, just his basic touch on passes. To me, he had vibes of Cam Newton when he was falling apart, Kaepernick when he was falling apart. He just couldn't control where the ball was going. And I think when you use the pitcher analogy, when you're a pitcher and you throw really hard and you can't throw strikes, it's kind of cool at first. We're like, we'll just mix it in a change up and we'll eventually kind of lock in. And then like a couple years later, it's like, this guy's fucking walking everybody. It doesn't work. Guy, his touch is horrendous right now. I mean, it's really bad. He can't complete passes, like pretty basic passes for a really good player. He is not remotely close to being like, oh, that's a really good player. Like he's pretty terrible right now. Like, I've been reading and seeing all the tweets, and I was like, I wonder if these guys are overreacting. Because if you don't really watch every snap, when you watch Monday Night Football, I was like, damn, maybe these people in Philly aren't off their rocker. He's pretty terrible right now, guy. Like, I mean, god awful. So I would say going into the job, you go, our highest paid player on the team by a country mile is this quarterback who is at rock bottom. And for the percentage of people that can get up for rock bottom as an athlete, I think it's much easier just as a human being to kind of dust yourself off. As an athlete, whether you're a baseball player, a golfer, a football player, like you might be able to get your life back on track, but like that physical skill, like we've seen it enough times, like sometimes it never comes back. And it crossed my mind for the first time, maybe this guy is never going to be good again.
Yeah, it crossed my mind.
And I'm not trying to overreact or anything, but honestly, I was having these thoughts watching him play.
Well, yeah, was Paul DePodesta right? Paul's just been holding his breath, waiting for his I
told you, motherfuckers!
I think there's a few other complicating factors. Right?
The Brown should have tweeted last night just eye emojis.
Like you guys
and then two spaces with a little dash PD.
Yeah,
I told you, motherfuckers.
I had to Google to make sure he was still there, but I think he's still there.
Yeah, he is.
There's a couple other complicating factors to this, right, too. And I don't know that these have gone away. It's just his play has become so bad that his play is the primary discussion. But there have been the whispers over the years about whether or not he's a great locker room leader, right? All those sorts of things. And on top of that, his $34 million contract next year. He's a $59 million dead cap. The out year, Spot Track's out year, is going into 2022 when his dead cap's only $24 million and his salary's $31 million. But, my thing with him is
I don't think they're looking to get rid of him. They want him to play.
Well, they can't.
Yeah.
They couldn't if they wanted to, but you're right. They've seen the upside. You don't walk away from guys like that.
When you factor into just in general what they invested in him even before the contract, the draft picks, like they did put all the chips in franchise history in this guy's.
And he made him look right for a while. It looked like and it's why I've given him a pass for a long time because I've watched him many times look in losing efforts where he's made mistakes and thought, you know what, he's just out there trying to carry a team. He's trying to do it all himself. Of course you're going to throw interceptions when you're trying to do it all yourself. That's the only way this team can win. I remember watching him last year thinking the only way they can win is if he hits 3 home runs a game. Like, that's how they have to win. Just him hitting home runs every day. And that's it. And so if he strikes out instead of hitting a single because he's trying to hit the home run, fine. I'm not going to knock him for hitting 185 because the only way he can win is to hit home runs. But then he'd have some games like the Bears game this year where they're right in it. And he throws a red zone pick on. I mean, he just made some awful decisions trying to make crazy plays where it's like, Carson, look up. You don't have to do this right now. This is not the last game-winning drive attempt, right? You got time. It's a one-score game. What are you doing? And then to your point, they're just missing throws that it's like, wait a second, that's not even a home run. Why is that a negative play? Why is that a failed play? So I still think it's in him somewhere because I've seen it. I just seen his high end. It doesn't look like what most guys' high end is. But maybe I've overrated how consistently he can play at that level. Maybe it's not about the talent around him, even though to me it's still a factor.
I think there is a huge loss of confidence in the player. And when you get it on an island, and it's weird, like it's a team sport, but as a quarterback, you are kind of back there by yourself. Like as a wide receiver, they don't have to throw it to you. You can throw it to other guys and block. You can, just run routes to drag guys away. Like as an offensive lineman, as a quarterback, it's kind of on you to make some plays. Like when it's just you throwing the ball. And I see a guy, and I don't know enough about his week. Like, is he having great practices? Like, what are they writing about him? And what's Doug saying? And I think for the most part,
they wrote that his practice habits. Remember, Silver said that
were kind of shitty. But let's just say even if his practice habits are shitty, let's just say he's completing balls in practice. So he's like, I can do this in the game. And then he gets to the game and it's leaving his hand. It does look early on in these games like he doesn't know where the ball's going to go. Like he either leaves it short, like he leaves it long. Like he's not. I think what do coaches always say? That you just want to get out there and be able to play, right? You don't want to be thinking. You want to just be able to play fast. And in football and basketball, games that are just moving at warp speed. Baseball, there is just a lot of thinking. You're just standing there a lot. But in football and basketball, it's just boom, boom. You're just constantly, you just want to be able to execute whatever you're supposed to be executing. And I see a guy that's like kind of hesitant. And when the ball leaves his hand on a guy that's wide open down the seam, he underthrows him. And it ends up being PI, but like Brian Greasy was like, God, he hits him on stride. Maybe the guy scores. And there's another pass where the guy's wide open in the corner of the end zone, and he lollipops it way over the guy's head. And then a couple plays later, he underthrows it. I just don't think he has any clue where the ball's going when it's leaving his hands. And to me, there's only one thing that comes. Like I think he's completely lost confidence in just his accuracy, and that's just his playing ability, right? Because I think when you see him running around, like he can take off and run over a guy. Like physically, he's a freak. I just don't think he has any clue where the football's going, and that's. I do feel for him in the sense that has to be a pretty miserable feeling inside, and you have to probably project a lot of fake confidence. Like, guys, I'm fine. Like, no, you're lost, because his play speaks for itself. He looks lost.
Yeah, but I mean, is part of that like Greg Ward and Travis Fulgham are the guys he's thrown the most passes to this year? Not
yeah,
to
but
discredit them.
I'm more talking more about this.
No, I understand.
For a lot of games, for sure. I mean, he had Alshon was back, Rager was there. Goddard's a really good player. They had Miles Sanders. Like he had weapons, and he's like skipping balls. Like I would agree on many times that I've seen him. I think part of that, once you play like that for a while, that you can just head down it. They say forever like bad practice habits. Totally
agree.
And I think bad habits get developed on losing teams. I think it happens a lot like in the NBA. It's harder in the NFL because you're being so evaluated and your contract's not guaranteed that you play really hard and you kind of just do what the coaches say. But in basketball, you can kind of just freelance. I think he kind of started freelancing a little bit, and it got away from what made him really good. On a much higher level, last year with Rodgers, who had his stats look good, but everyone was like, God, he's slipping. And it was like, he's not really buying into what they're telling him to do, and his fundamentals are bad, and his arm's not quite as good anymore. And this year you watch him like he's in complete control because I think he starts listening. I think Carson just needs like and this is probably why Doug's going to get fired, like an intervention. And when I'm saying intervention for a football player, that usually means a new coach talking to you.
Yeah, because it's hard to have an intervention when you've been paid.
And the same guy's been talking to you for 5 years, right?
Right.
What's Doug going to tell him that he hasn't already tried to tell him?
Like, now listen, Carson, when Foles won the Super Bowl, one of the things we really focused on, right, there's this whole other element here. Like you said, it's harder to dig out as an athlete maybe. Part of it is the public nature. This is a high-pressure town. Like, he knows they won a championship without him and then won another playoff game without him. Like, that's been part of what he's been fighting through, right? That's got to be part of what he's trying to get over. That's part of what he hears from whoever's yelling at him whenever they're yelling at him. Like, that is part of this story, is their greatest successes have come without him. Shockingly.
To me, the key is going to be, and I don't know how he's going to react. Some people think that he's not meant to have this happen to him, is if they get a guy in that building, can they hold him really accountable? Can they hold him to a high standard?
Right.
Because, and maybe at this point in time, he won't react well to this, and it'll just be over. Like, he's just going to be a bad player.
But that's what intervention is. It's like, what other option do you have at this point?
Well, to me, that's their only option guy. Like, that's it. And it's pretty crazy, but I've come to grips with he just might be a bad player moving forward. It might be over. And then back to your original question, like, if that's part of the job, it's like, that's pretty risky. I think by no means that's as desirable of a job as it would have been a year ago.
Well, I would say, absolutely cannot hire a defensive coach. Like, if you're a defensive coach, you don't want to entrust this guy to somebody else.
No. To me, they have one option. It's an offensive coach. One option. Of all the teams, I think a lot of teams have options. Like, you don't have to give Herbert a offensive coach. Hell, Houston might need a defensive coach. Atlanta has a defensive coach that might end up getting the job. Detroit, you can do whatever. Same with the Jets. With Carson, you need a guy that, like, can you save Carson Wentz? Like, that's the number one guy, the head coach.
And that's, to me, and unfortunately it may be hard this year, they're tailor-made for how do you get that guy in the NFL? He has to be a head coach fired by somebody else. He's got to be a coordinator ready for a job. They're tailor-made for a big-time college coach who can come in, who's got all the leverage, who's got control over everything, who just got paid $12 million a year because that's what you have to pay a big-time guy to leave college because he's making 8 or 9 or 10 in college. Right? They're tailor-made for somebody like that this year.
Urban Meyer to be in his ass.
Exactly. For Urban or for Lincoln Riley or for just somebody who – and I just don't know if that's – I don't know. That, to me, makes the most sense for them because you've got to have a guy with a ton of clout if you're going to try and do that.
Jim Harbaugh?
Jim Harbaugh. Ooh. You think Howie Roseman wants to invite Jim Harbaugh into the building?
I never know. Desperate times call for desperate measures, right?